If you can imagine every city street decimated. Just as far as we could see, everything was destroyed.
You could smell that there were still bodies buried in the rubble that had not been recovered yet, and that took me back like I had not expected.
So many people sleeping on the streets, eating off of the ground, buildings down on the ground.
People were wandering around in the dark, just had nothing to do and looked like they were disoriented.
We got to camp and everybody got set up, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't even process what I saw and what I felt and what I smelled, and I kind of just shut down. But then once we started seeing patients, it was on at that point, and you go right into nurse mode. There's no worrying about this or that. You've got hundreds of patients that need to be seen. You take them in an orderly fashion, you triage them, you report to either the instructor or the doctor, you get a diagnosis, you get the meds, you get whatever has to be done, and it just happens.
We saw over 900 patients, and so there were so many different types of illnesses, it's hard to list them all. We saw a wide range of the effects of the earthquake, and then some that were effects of chronic illnesses.
Most of the kids had scabies. A lot of them had tinea, which is a fungal infection because they don't have good water sources, they don't have good nutrition, they're dehydrated. We had a seizure kid come in. He was in status epilepticus. He was 6 years old, and he came in seizing.
The seizure patient. You know, I've seen seizures before, but normally they get out of it. But this one was seizing like for a good maybe 30 minutes, and I couldn't believe it. Like, we couldn't get him to stop, you know. So we were still, you know, pushing fluids, pushing medications, trying to get him to calm down, keeping his airway open. You know, we read about it, but to actually see it is totally different.
I had one woman in particular who ate charcoal. It's a condition called pica, where she's so deficient in some of her basic nutrients that she starts to crave non-food items. Those are things that you don't see a lot here in the United States, but we talked about those in class. And so it was nice to be like, oh, they weren't making this up, this is real. And it was nice that, okay, I now know what I need to do for that because we talked about this before. Everything I learned in school really did apply. And I think it actually applied more in a clinic type setting than it does at a hospital. And I realized that my assessments were pretty spot on. There were a couple things where I just didn't know, and if I said I didn't know, my instructors would step in and be like, oh, well, it's this, this, and this. And that was an amazing learning experience.
It was nice to see the students just pitch in and help and do whatever is necessary to help that person or that family that we were trying to help. Before we left, some of our students in Nursing 1600 collected toys, and we took those toys and we distributed them at an orphanage. They made me really proud.
Kind of like opened my eyes to different views, different type of people, different aspects of medical care. Yeah, this was the best experience of my life. I'm so glad that I did this.
At the end of the day, I felt that I touched many lives. I helped them with their babies and taught them how to feed their child, and I just felt very fulfilled, and I was so glad I went. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Putting yourself in a position like we did, going to Haiti, humbles you. And to approach nursing care being humbled is very, very different than what we see every day. And it's not always about being the biggest and the best. It's about giving what you can and knowing that what you can give is enough. This trip in Haiti has definitely kind of set in my mind that this is what I want to do.